Good evening. Welcome all. Great to see so many new faces here. Welcome all to the School of Visual Arts. My name's Tom Hoon. I chair the VCS program here, and we're very happy to be sponsoring this evening's event. Quite fortunate to have distinguished Mr. Saiyid Ali Naqvi with us this evening. Mr. Naqvi is going to be talking to us about the art and poetry of his cousin, a famous artist named Sadequain. Let me tell you a little bit first about Mr. Naqvi. He was born in India. He went to university there. After the partition in 1947, a few years later, 1951, he moved to Pakistan after having studied civil engineering at Aligarh University in India. And as a result of the civil engineering work that he did, he was very involved in water resource management. So he later came to study at the University of California at Irvine and was involved in the development of some of the largest dam projects in Pakistan. He later also worked in the Philippines at the Asian Development Bank there and worked there for the Water and Power Authority. More recently, just 3 years ago, published a very important book from Oxford University Press titled Indus Waters and Social Change. Very happy. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Naqvi this evening. Our idea was that we would have a kind of free-for-all conversation about the work of Sadequain, and Sadequain was Mr. Naqvi's cousin. They spent a lot of time together in their young lives and later. So I thought it would be really interesting for us all to look at the work, to hear the reminiscences from Sadequain's cousin, and to show you all work that's quite different from what we're used to looking at. And perhaps a good place to start is with a quite interesting self-portrait that Sadequain made. Before we begin talking about this, I have to, though, thank two people who were really influential in making this evening possible. One is Mr. Naqvi's daughter, Miniza, who helped organize, put together the images, the PowerPoint, and thank you very much. And the other is Mr. Naqvi's son, Ali, who's also tremendously helpful in helping us organize this and bring it to fruition. So let us take a look at this astounding self-portrait, which is a self-portrait in imitation of, or in homage to, a famous work. It's a self-portrait of the Buddha.
Yeah, this is inspired by the statue of Buddha, which is in the Lahore Museum. A small statue, and it was excavated from Texla. Texla is a place, archaeological site, about 300 BC. So that statue of Buddha is inspired by that, and that statue is called Fasting Buddha.
The fasting Buddha.
So Sadequain has inspired by that, and he has made himself with the apples. Fasting is so strong that and the legendary apples, because there is a biblical legend also about the forbidden fruit.
The forbidden fruits,
so
the apples.
Apple is the forbidden fruit. Still, he is not eating that. He is fasting.
So he has.
You can draw your own conclusions from this.
But I see in much of his work there's a real visual sense of humor that must have been part of his personality as well.
Yes, sure.
I remember you telling me also that when you were quite young, you and your cousin were living in the same compound, and that your cousin would draw graffiti all over the walls of the compound.
Yes.
And the families were quite unhappy about this, I take it.
Very unhappy. The residents and all the people of the neighborhood were most unhappy that with charcoal, he painted so many pictures on the walls, freshly whitewashed. And he started this thing because from the potter's hut. He didn't go to any art school, by the way.
That's right. He's entirely self-trained, self-taught.
And he was my cousin, my aunt's son.
I see.
And he was only about 7-8 months older than me. That's all. And so we grew up together. So he and I both used to go to the potter's hut.
And the potter made art pottery or just pottery for houses to use? He had a wheel, I see.
Yeah, wheel. And the jug is coming out of that and cutting and putting like this, and there is a kiln. And then the wife of the potter was painting on the walls of the hut. It was a festival, Diwali festival. It happened to be that. And she was painting birds and peacock on the wall, and Sadequain copied that on the ground, sitting on the ground. We sat on the ground, and by fingers
he would just draw with his finger in the ground.
First he drew those pottery, and then he did this also. Then he rubbed it off because he was not happy with that. Again did it and again did it, and we used to go almost every day there. So this was the first art school that he attended. And we were only about 5 years old, 5, 6. So then he also started drawing the dreams that we saw. He drew, and his own, and he drew my dreams also. And so we started something like that.
It sounds like a wonderful childhood together.
And then after this peacock and the other birds that he saw painting there, he started painting that on the walls of our neighborhood.
Was there not paper there, or he just preferred doing it in public?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And then this thing continued, much to the annoyance of our elders and our also families. And then he also became interested in geography, and he drew the map of the world. He could make the world map freehand, completely.
Self-taught, interesting. But there were also in your household. Here's the art classroom where he was teaching as a 16-year-old.
Yeah. This was, he took a job in New Delhi, in the All India Radio. And then after that, we took examination, he and I both.
I see.
But then I went to the university and he stayed in Amroha at the house, and he joined the school. And this school was founded by my grandfather and the brother of his grandfather. So this was a very close relationship we had.
And there was also a history in your family of the men, the grandfather, the great-grandfather, and I think another generation who practiced calligraphy.
Yes, yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that, of what they were writing?
I will, when I will show you some calligraphy.
Yes, please.
This I will. Now, this is the way he used to paint. He never, at least I never saw him using easel. He always painted like this, sitting down, sitting like this, and sometimes taking the help of the wall, and sometimes not. So when we will come to the Mangla mural, then you will see, because Ali and Maniza both helped him
paint
that painting.
Yes, we'll get to that mural. It's a wonderful mural.
These are two Balochi girls from Balochistan. He was staying at Quetta, Balochistan, in 1954. And this is a Karachi, typical Karachi bus with separate compartment for women. There was no restriction, by the way. The women could sit anywhere.
In Pakistan.
Yeah, but there was a separate place also. At least at that time there was no restriction.
Right. Until later. Yes.
Those were very liberal days. And these are scholars debating on some very seem to be controversial subject, theological subject, I suppose, and maybe this is my own interpretation, that they are probably discussing about the alcohol, wine. Because you see those tumblers, he has used those tumblers to symbolically take your vision back to the alcohol and wine. And the eyes, these are also serving as their eyes. One is looking towards this side and the other towards this as they are debating. And they are sitting in a library. It's a more modern thing. With those books, the way the books are placed there, it is more modern.
It's a lovely image. It's really, the colors are fantastic.
This was 1956. Again, this was 1956 in the Genus Hospital. He was admitted in the hospital for checkup because a very influential politician of that time, Mr. Surworthy, who became the Prime Minister later on, he recommended to the head of the hospital to give him a room there, and this room became his studio.
Aha.
So he stayed there for 9 months.
In the hospital.
In the hospital.
And making art.
It was separate. It became a. So he made some murals also in ward number 5 of the hospital. So this was a fellow who used to clean up the rooms, and now he's sitting, taking some rest after. Yeah, this is called meditation. Now it is now, I think it is for the students and yourself to decide whether it is abstract or what it is.
Whether it's abstract or figurative?
I think it is abstract, and the meditation itself is a very abstract activity of the brain. So he has tried to catch that activity. But what she is meditating about is hard to say. Usually meditation means some spiritual.
Right.
There is a spiritual connotation with the term meditation. But in this case it seems to be more mundane. My own interpretation. And this is my portrait, which is artistically is but this is in the hospital again. I used to go from the office every evening after finishing office
to visit
and go and sit with Sadequain there. So I was working on a play.
Aha.
Writing a play.
Oh, so the art continues throughout the family. It's,
yes.
You know, even with the engineers.
And here I also met my future wife.
Ah.
For the first time.
In the hospital?
In the hospital.
How did that come about?
Well, she came there because their family, her father and Sadequain's elder brother worked in the All India Radio at the same time. So they knew each other very well, and her father was also very much interested in art and in all aspects of art. So he was a learned man, and a writer and author, and many books and poet and everything. So she was studying in a teacher's training college, trying to become a teacher. So she had to give a lecture, and for that she needed some drawings to show to the students. So she came to Sadequain to get some drawings made by him.
So you must be very happy that your cousin was in the hospital for a long time.
So I met her here.
That's a very interesting piece.
Sitting female. Again, this is up to you to decide what form it is. It's abstract or what. But Sadequain calls it mystic figuration. He has coined this term, mystic figuration.
Mystic figuration. Very nice.
And this is the inspiration or effect of the cactus that he lived for some time at a place at the seaside. In a studio, he became his studio, surrounded by giant cactus.
Wow.
And he saw human limbs in that cactus.
And he has many works that were inspired by the cactus, right?
Many works. Yeah. Right up to the end. This has been his basic thing, this cactus.
And do you have any sense of what the cactus, did it have a particular special meaning for him, or he liked the shape, or?
Shape.
He was just the shape.
Various shapes and very intricate and
Maybe there are some more here.
yeah. So he was highly impressed with those, and this is composition in Kufi. Again, this is a calligraphy.
This is a calligraphy.
Kufi is an Arabic script.
the Arabic script, yeah.
He has used Kufi quite a lot, and one French critic says that this has been his basic Kufi and cactus.
So the two main motifs are this,
Yeah.
this script and the cactus influence.
There are two figures sitting here. I suppose they are female figures. One should be male and the other female. But this is Kufi script. And this mother and child.
And we were going to mention something about the calligraphy of the family, right? Of the grandfather,
Yes,
and so
yes,
on.
ancestors.
Yeah. And what
Grandfather.
kind of calligraphy were they doing?
Arabic, yeah.
Arabic.
Yeah.
Arabic.
Quran.
The Quran.
I will show you some verses.
Oh,
here.
we have some here.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is cactus.
Cactus.
This is the resurrection of cactus. Because it goes upward towards the light. So it gives an impression of resurrection.
Uh-huh.
And cactus, because he is impressed by the power of the cactus to survive in extremely difficult and hard circumstances.
Do you think for him that was maybe in part that he identified with the cactus?
Yes, he identified. Actually, there are lots of his self-portraits which are within the cactus, as if he's growing out of the cactus. Metamorphosis.
And well, Mr. Naqvi is working on a book on the art of his cousin. I don't envy you having to try to write about the work and describe what's happening, because it's, well, it's difficult work, right? It's wonderful, but it's difficult to pin down exactly what the influences are, how much is his personality, what the meaning of the cactus
this
might be.
For your students too, and you.
You want our help to help sort that.
Yeah. And this he painted himself again, sitting at the beach, sand spit, it's called sand spit, beach in Karachi. And we used to go there. We had a friend there who built a hut. Not hut, actually, it was a good house, well furnished, 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, living room, and so on and so forth.
And was he someone who was very sociable? Did he like to be alone, or was there always people around him?
No, we had quite a few friends.
Quite a few.
Some were very, very close friends, 3 or 4, and we have common friends. At least 4 of them were our very close and common friends. He had other, of course, because of business, as he developed the business and so on and so forth. So he had lots of friends, and the civil service, and in the business people, and so on.
And I've heard stories of him that he wasn't very possessive about his work at all, that he would readily give it away and give it away. He had no possession of it.
Not. Actually, even before the last time I met him, it was 3 months before he died.
And remind me, I'm sorry, which year did he die?
1987.
1987.
He died in February 1987, and I met him in November 86 at the prayer hall. And I told him that, look, this is the last time I'm probably seeing you, because he was so frail. And So I told him that at least make some by your memory, at least a list of
paintings
and
so on. Yeah.
your works. And so he said, no,
He wasn't interested in. He wasn't interested in the legacy of what happened after with his work. And I've heard stories also that he was always drawing and painting, sketching, no matter.
Always.
Even when he didn't have a paintbrush in his hand, he was drawing in the air,
also,
and so on.
Yeah. His hands.
The medium, I think they're mostly acrylic. Yeah. Oil early on, and then later acrylic, or I think so. Yeah.
This is some symphony of blue and
ochre.
So, frankly, I do not understand myself what it means.
You will have to decide if you're going to finish the book about him.
I'm not sure that he did it in 1960. It should be maybe 61 or in Paris.
He was living in Paris for a few years.
In 1961 he went to Paris.
I want to get to his mural at the power station.
Oh, this is rape of, it says repose, Europa and
the bull.
And the bull. The famous, very famous story of rape of Europa.
And you've told me also that he was very impressed by Picasso, that he was someone.
He met Picasso also in Paris.
Oh, he met him there.
Very much. Picasso, Rivera.
We could see earlier, I think, the influence or the similarity between Rivera and Sadequain.
And ideological similarity. Because both he and myself had the same ideological passions. I would say ideological passions. And I like Rivera. And we will come to, when I talk about the Mangla mural, I will show you that socialist revolution, how he is tried.
But this is the one that's at the Bank of Pakistan.
This is the State Bank of Pakistan's new building, in which he had painted a mural. The theme was essentially provided by the president of the bank at that time. Theme means that these great, eminent, well-known figures
from the history
of science and art and technology and all sorts of things, starting from the Greek period down to the modern period, ending with Einstein. Starting with Socrates, ending with Einstein. So, and in between there is what is now called Islamic art, and but I personally don't like the word Islamic, because the word has become something different from what it should have been. But that period was the golden period of Muslim civilization, certainly, and produced tremendous amount of work. And here, if we go back a little, can you go back? This Pulse, the physician.
This is here on the left.
There was a great physician of that period, of the about 9th century, and he started the diagnosis by just
feeling the pulse.
By taking the pulse, he could diagnose the ailment. So Sadequain has painted himself as the sick man.
In his own mural, it's a self-portrait of the sick
Yes.
man.
And at the inauguration of this, when it was unveiled, and at that time our president, who was a military man, Ayub Khan,
The president of Pakistan.
a president of Pakistan. This was 1980, I think 82. No, 81. 61.
61.
This one,
60, sorry, 61. 61. So Ayub Khan, somebody in the said, look, Sadequain has included himself in these eminent people. So Sadequain said, then whom should I have included? A sick man.
Ah. Yeah. Who better to include, or anyone else would have been offended if they'd been depicted as the sick man.
Right. So it comes down to all you have Karl Marx and you have the Indian Mirza Ghalib and Iqbal and Einstein on their side, and Abu Sina and Plato and Aristotle, and everyone is there.
It's very much in the same tradition as Rivera's work, right? Sort of giving a whole kind of encyclopedic look
But
at
it's
human knowledge.
evolutionary.
And revolutionary, politically.
In Rivera, recently something going on in Detroit.
Right.
Celebration is going on. And there, industrial city. So it's only industrial city. What Sadequain has done, and we will come to the mural, it's an evolution. How from agrarian, primitive agriculture communities, how they grew up and went up to the period of space age.
And you and your cousin, I understand, you had socialist inclinations at the time in the 1940s, and
Yes.
and maybe like Rivera, your cousin saw this progress of humankind as also a political revolution.
Right,
in part.
right. Right, we had the same.
Yeah, at the time, just before partition. Right? Here's one of the lovely.
This is again now cactus, and this is a metamorphosis of cactus. Kafka, it reminds me of Kafka's metamorphosis. But in that case, a human being is metamorphosed into.
This is the other way around.
Yeah, the other way around. Cactus is metamorphosed into.
It's interesting how many of his paintings, they have a quality of looking like a woodblock print.
But I don't think Sadequain had in mind Kafka. This is my own feeling. Metamorphosis.
Is this also
this
a
is,
self-portrait?
Again,
A self-portrait?
self-portrait. Self-portrait with his hands, typical hands. And I am not a painter, but my children tell me that my fingers also look like that, but not much softer. And
I'm not sure one should often rely on what one's children say.
my children tell me. Oh, here. Again, this use of cactus. Now, this could be a very controversial thing. This is the Last Supper. It's very intriguing that he has used the same title for this painting, which shows all the disciples of Jesus and Jesus himself with a halo in the center, but no table, And the story is that the story of Da Vinci's Last Supper. It is that he has chosen a moment, that moment, in which he says that someone amongst you will betray me, or someone is a traitor.
Don't know
It
which of
amounts
you.
to saying that someone amongst you is a traitor. So from that, we have come to understand that this whole group, and Jesus himself, it's a revolutionary group. A revolutionary in the sense that they want to get rid of the imperialism, Roman imperialism, and they were also fighting against, because at that time the high priest was appointed by, the Roman emperor had taken the power of appointing the,
Yes.
before that, as long as the last king of Jews, what was his name? Herod.
Herod.
Uh,
Yeah.
he was there, so the selection process was there and appointment. But now Rome was appointing the high priest. So high priest was appointed, and Jesus was opposing that. So this was a revolutionary band.
So the betrayal, in effect, is the betrayal of the betrayal by imperialism.
Yeah, right. And he was a Messiah in the eyes of, he says, followers and disciples, he was the Messiah. But in the eyes of the Rome and other, he was a rebel.
Yes. Yes. And this is the famous
This
illustrations
is the Stranger,
of Camus.
the novel by Camus. This is the main character of the novel. He's sitting in the and reading the telegram informing him about the death of his mother.
Right.
So he has caught this. And then he's in jail because he shot a man. It's a story, long story. I need not go into that. But architecture, this you would say it's an abstract form of reclining figure.
I like how much the illustrations capture the mood of the novel, the darkness and the melancholy of it.
And this is a crowd. This is a crowd in the novel. This is Mangla mural.
And this is it's a power plant and a dam?
Yeah, this is the power station and the machine hall of the power station. Now,
The machine hall, I see.
Now there are 10 units already installed. But at that time, in the beginning, only first 2 units were installed. And third, they were preparing to install. When this mural was completed and installed here.
But it is a curious location for the mural because the public never visits this.
No,
These are just the lab-coated engineers eventually who...
And the size of the mural is 17 feet high, painted portion, 17 feet high and 169 feet long. So this is a monumental and huge mural.
It's more than half a football field in length. Right.
And it covers the length of the distance between the first two units.
And how did the commission come about for this? I mean, who would decide to put a mural in the power station?
Well, I was partly responsible for that.
That's how it gets decided. Because you were involved in the construction of the power station and the dam.
No, I'm not a power engineer, but I was a civil engineer. This was a civil engineering job.
I see.
Even the installation of the units is a civil engineering job.
I see.
But its operation and maintenance becomes power.
Power, I see.
So it remained the civil engineering work, the dam, but I was more interested. But I had the position of overall.
I see.
Everything. The dams as well as the power station, and I was deputy project director.
I see. It must be one of the largest walls available in Pakistan for someone to put a mural on.
Or in the world.
In the world.
One of the. At that time, this was the largest contract, civil engineering contract, ever awarded, and this was financed. A lot of it was financed by the U.S.
By the U.S.
Not directly, but through the World Bank.
Through the World Bank. This is a section from the mural.
This is a section of the, and this section shows the transition from the agrarian communities to more urban sort of. If you see the structures, some infrastructure, urbanization, towards urbanization. But if you look at the figures, the powerful physically for labor, and that is why it's called saga of labor. This is the symbolization of the lake created by the dam, and then various things have been provided as a symbol, construction equipment, turbine and generator, and some development led as a result of the construction of the dam. They are all shown in a very symbolic manner. The water is coming out of the
Over here.
reservoir. Now this is the beginning of the space age, but still there is yearning. This is 1967. So the flight to moon is still three years off. So it is still in that stage when efforts were being made to go to the moon, but not yet reached. So still it is yearning to the, and she symbolizes the, I don't know how to put it, as the one that you are in love for, something like that. The feeling is that there is a great love for going up and going to beyond the earth to investigate, and that you can only express it poetically by means of this way.
I see.
Provide a female beauty with the, you see her hair
Yes, it goes the whole length of the
Yes.
body. And Sadequain
And
also...
then the Earth is there, and then various planets are also, and so many stars, and one scientist is looking up, another scientist is looking down into the Earth itself, and this one is looking up. So he tried to catch this.
And Sadequain also wrote poetry as well.
He wrote poetry. सितारों से आगे जहाँ और भी हैं, there's Iqbal's, our poet Iqbal's words, and in the previous one, the Aftab. Could you just bring our next one, maybe next? No.
Oh, the other way.
Next,
Sorry.
Next. Oh no, I think that is missing.
Okay.
Anyway. Now this one is an interpretation of verse of our great poet, Mirza Ghalib. And it is my interpretation of this. A simple interpretation is that this is his cage. There is a cage in which he is entrapped in that cage, and he is only seeking that somehow the door becomes open and he should get away like a bird. He is prepared to fly. He is keeping his wings prepared to fly. But my interpretation is different. It is more cosmic.
I see. Well, and in that light, it reminds me of Blake,
Yeah.
the work of...
You see the Saturn and other planets and sun and this. So he says that I am prepared, I am sitting, prepared like a bird with its wings. But I am only wanting, my only desire is that the door would have been opened. That door means the means would have become available for me to go out. But I am mentally prepared and looking forward to that.
We have a request to hear the verse.
The verse for us, the Ghalib's verse,
हाँ,
which is this.
कुंज में बैठा रहूं यूं पर खुला, काश के होता कफस का दर खुला.
Translation.
Yeah.
This is the Ghalib's verse.
So you have to translate it.
Cool.
Translation.
Huh?
Translation.
Manisa can do better. काश के होता कफस का दर खुला. And this is
incredible, yeah. So
Martin
this is
Luther
the year
King.
of Martin Luther King's
It
assassination.
just happened that the news came on in the newspapers and other media when Sadequain was in the studio, so he immediately painted this. And had Martin Luther King was shot, killed by gun, but he has pointed as if he was crucified.
Exactly. It's a very powerful image.
It's very powerful, very powerful. And then this is another poetry poem by another our socialist poet, Ahmed, his contemporary, and he has been translated by Noemi Lazard, translated by her. This गड़ी हैं कितनी सलीबें मेरे दरीचे में, बेटा इसको भी this is concentration camp, Nazi concentration camp. This is calligraphy. This is Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I begin with the name of God. Means that.
I begin with the name of God.
He has inherited from ancestors. His grandfather made this
The same calligraphy.
calligraphy in the mosques, on the domes of the mosques. And then they also wrote Quran
Books.
and also decorated the pages. So we had plenty of these things. Sadequain donated some of them to the Lahore Museum. This is just to waiting for the or something. How it is after the hanging or before the hanging.
It's not clear which.
It leaves but you can see the wall is broken, and you could see there is a scaffold there. Again, this is calligraphy. And this is, if you see, Sadequain has had some innovation in the calligraphy. It is not the standard calligraphy. It's more innovative. It is more artistic.
It looks tremendously modern.
Yeah, it becomes like a ship. You know?
Very nice, yeah, with a sail.
There are other things to care about, and other things are represented symbolically by the crows. And the dove, he is saying that, look, no doubt there are other things also. I have to look towards that, not merely love.
Well, he's looking toward community and toward society and
webbed. Again, this web is only is a symbol of you are caught in your old traditions, and these lines of these are the. So it is only showing that you are caught in the old ideas and traditions, and you are not getting out of it.
This is another
This was again mural, Mangla murals, one section, which has this Iqbal's verse, "Aftab-e taza paida badne geti se hua." It's a socialist idea of this poem was composed after the First World War, immediately after that, and soon after the Russian Revolution.
I see. Maybe, I don't want to monopolize the whole conversation, maybe we could open up the floor to other people who have questions to ask about the work or the life of Sadequain.
What is your question?
Did your cousin travel very much? Because he responded to many things, to Martin Luther King, to the concentration.
He traveled a lot. He came to US also, and in Paris he spent 4 or 5 years in Paris, and London, and Switzerland, and then also Istanbul and Tehran, and then Middle East, He traveled a lot. Much more than I have.
And he spent time in New York.
This is supposed to be New York, but I have not fully grasped it for what he has. I have another painting which I call 57th Street. It is, I don't know whether we have the...
It could be 57th Street, yeah.
Mystic Fire.
When you think about the book that you're working on,
Yeah.
what is there a main, what would you hope the people who look at Sadequain's work, what would you hope that they take from it, that they see in it?
Yeah, well, main here to that it is humanistic, evolutionistic, humanistic, socialistic.
Socialistic, yes.
And so then he in various and again, because I'm writing painting and portrait, so I'm selecting that poetry which is complementary to the painting and vice versa. So to show the relationship between the two things, two arts, visual art as well as poetic art. So that is, and he has 2 volumes of poetry, rubaiyats mainly. Rubaiyats, the West is familiar with rubaiyats on account of Umar Khayyam's Rubaiyat Umar Khayyam, translated by Fitzgerald. But Sadequain has the themes of Sadequain's rubaiyats are somewhat different from Umar Khayyam's, because superficially Umar Khayyam's seems to be only wine and love and this and that and that. But there are some deeper meanings also there. But in Sadequain there are much deeper meanings, humanistic and evolutionistic, as I said.
He must have been a fascinating person to spend time with,
so
to grow up with.
He has composed at least more than 1,000 rubais, which means 4 misras. What do you call in English rubai?
Other questions, comments?
Well, I think he quite separately. He did. He knew. He had the idea of what his grandfather did, and how the Qurans have been inscribed by them, ayats have been inscribed by them, but he did not copy them. He did his own. In fact, it's very innovative, very different from the standard calligraphy, Arabic. So I'm sorry.
Yes, he was a socialist, I think is the right answer.
In a sense it could be, in a sense it would not be
No religious, yeah, because if you see, he writes in Sadequain, Afi anho, ऊपर लिखते. In every signature, you say Afi anho, and उसको माफ रखे. But he may be not orthodox. In any case, not orthodox. In fact, he was very much opposed to. There's a lot of poetry against this kind of hypocrisy. Full of.
It reminds me of the image we were talking about earlier of the man trapped, waiting for the door to open. Everything was prepared, but the door in his time didn't open far enough.
Right. Yeah.
Please, Fatima.
Was he married? Did he have...
No, he was not married.
She's asking, he depicted women in a particular way in his paintings. Head of cactus, 3 faces.
There are so many.
Yeah, so it's not in a very,
Countless.
but not in a very pleasant way.
But it wasn't very pleasant. It was not a pleasant depiction of women. It was a bit of a harsh depiction in his... Why was that? The 3 faces, 1 dark face, 1 light face. We've talked about that many times. Why did he paint?
Not all of them. There's some. He has not painted portraits of any beauties. He has been. I think his. There is some paintings of that type in which he seems to be more generous. I would say more generous.
There were a lot of erotic works.
Mostly,
There were a lot of erotic
if you
works.
look at that drawing we just saw,
The one we saw.
on one side,
This one.
look, this one. It's a very nice drawing. But in this also, the drawing, the man is telling her that love is not the only thing. I have to take care of other things. ये फैज़ का आपको याद होगा ना?
Translation.
No, फैज़, this मुझसे पहली से मोहब्बत मेरे महबूब नमा, उसमें ये है कि
Abu, English.
in that there is a verse, और भी दुख है ज़माने में
There are many
मोहब्बत
other
के,
cares in this world besides love.
और भी दुख है ज़माने में मोहब्बत के सिवा, राहतें और भी हैं वसल की राहत के सिवा. Naomi Lazard has translated this in the book, her book.
I think the drawing actually betrays the sentiment, because from the point of view of the drawing, some other things don't look terribly attractive. They don't look terribly alive. They look more dead.
Cares as in worries.
Very nice. Yeah, other things to
And
care
there are
about. Not of the.
Hundreds of the drawings. Hundreds.
Yes, lots and lots of lovely erotic drawings. We didn't include them. The art school audiences don't like to see that too much.
Last night.
Someone else had their hand up. Fatima, you.
Oh, yeah, many. International exhibition, yes. In Paris, and London, the Commonwealth Art Exhibition, and in Paris he won the a coveted prize also. But that was for the Last Supper. Last Supper was won an international prize.
I see.
In London, in Paris.
Well, maybe we should wrap up then. Will you all join me in thanking Mr. Saiyid Ali Naqvi? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very lovely. Thank you. He later also worked in the Philippines at the Asian Development Bank there, and worked there for the Water and Power Authority. More recently, just 3 years ago, published a very important book from Oxford University Press titled Indus Waters and Social Change. Very happy. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Naqvi this evening. Our idea was that we would have a kind of free-for-all conversation about the work of Sadequain, and Sadequain was Mr. Naqvi's cousin. They spent a lot of time together in their young lives and later. So I thought it would be really interesting for us all to look at the work, to hear the reminiscences from Sadequain's cousin, and to show you all work that's quite different from what we're used to looking at. And perhaps a good place to start is with a quite interesting self-portrait that Sadequain made. Before we begin talking about this, I have to, though, thank two people who were really influential in making this evening possible. One is Mr. Naqvi's daughter, Miniza, who helped organize, put together the images, the PowerPoint, and thank you very much. And the other is Mr. Naqvi's son, Ali, who's also tremendously helpful in helping us organize this and bring it to fruition. So let us take a look at this astounding self-portrait, which is a self-portrait in imitation of, or in homage to, a famous work. It's a self-portrait of the Buddha.
Yeah, this is inspired by the statue of Buddha, which is in the Lahore Museum. A small statue, and it was excavated from Texla. Texla is a place, archaeological site, about 300 BC. So that statue of Buddha is inspired by that, and that statue is called Fasting Buddha.
The fasting Buddha.
So Sadequain has inspired by that, and he has made himself with the apples.
Good evening. Welcome all. Great to see so many new faces here. Welcome all to the School of Visual Arts. My name's Tom Hoon. I chair the VCS program here, and we're very happy to be sponsoring this evening's event. Quite fortunate to have distinguished Mr. Saiyid Ali Naqvi with us this evening. Mr. Naqvi is going to be talking to us about the art and poetry of his cousin, a famous artist named Sadequain. Let me tell you a little bit first about Mr. Naqvi. He was born in India. He went to university there. After the partition in 1947, a few years later, 1951, He moved to Pakistan after having studied civil engineering at Aligarh University in India. And as a result of the civil engineering work that he did, he was very involved in water resource management. So he later came to study at the University of California at Irvine and was involved in the development of some of the largest dam projects in Pakistan.
He didn't go to any art school, by the way.
That's right, he's entirely self-trained,
Yeah.
self-taught.
And he was my cousin, my aunt's son,
I see.
and he was only about 7, 8 months older than me. That's all. And so we grew up together. So he and I both used to go to the potter's hut.
And the potter made art pottery or just pottery for houses to
wheel.
use? He had a wheel, I see.
Yeah, wheel. And the jug is coming out of that and cutting and putting like this, and there is a kiln. And then the wife of the potter was painting on the walls of the hut. It was a festival, Diwali festival. It happened to be that. And she was painting birds and peacock on the wall, and Sadequain copied that on the ground, sitting on the ground. We sat on the ground, and by fingers
he would just draw with his finger on the ground.
First it used those pottery, and then we did this house. Fasting is so strong that and the legendary apples, because there is a biblical legend also about the forbidden fruit.
Ah, the forbidden fruits,
So
the
that
apples.
apple is the forbidden fruit. Still, he is not eating that. He is fasting.
So he has.
You can draw your own conclusions from this.
But I see in much of his work there's a real visual sense of humor that must have been part of his personality as well.
Yes, sure.
I remember you telling me also that when you were quite young, you and your cousin were living in the same compound, and that your cousin would draw graffiti all over the walls of the compound.
Yes.
And the families were quite unhappy about this, I take
Very
it.
unhappy. The residents and all the people of the neighborhood were most unhappy that with charcoal, he painted so many pictures on the walls, freshly whitewashed. And he started this thing because from the potter's hut,